this video, we're going to look at the bidding features available in NIM. To access my bids, we're going to go to the overview section of a job, go to production, and click on bids. To create a new bid, we can click on the plus button at the top of a bid. That'll create us a new set of bid versions to start working with. In addition to creating a brand new bid, we can also import a bid by clicking on the import button. From here, we could enter a job name, select the job, and select the bid to import, and then select the bid version. We'll then get a preview of the bid to import. If we want to import this bid, we can click yes, and that will import the bid into the current job. Going back to our new bid, let's look at the bid UI. At the top, we have our bid toolbar with buttons to save, copy the bid, revert any changes made to the bid, export the bid to Excel, or export the bid to a PDF. At the top left, we have our bid list. This includes the list of bids, as well as all of the versions for each of the bids. In the center, we have our bid dashboard, which displays an overview of bid details and the bid total, cost, profit, and margin. This also includes a chart displaying the bid's margin as compared to the company's target margin. And we'll get into more of that as we create our bid. To the far right, we see our bid totals, which are the running totals for the selected version. Here we can adjust an overall markup, discount, let's manually set the grand total, include tax if needed. If tax is included, we will see the pre-tax total as well as the adjusted grand total that includes the tax value. The lower section here is our bid components. Our components include the details, the estimate, which includes all of our line items, comments for the bid, statement of work, assumptions, terms and conditions, as well as our export settings. First, we're going to go ahead and update our bid information. So in this case, our example bid will be bidding a 60-second commercial. We are going to select the user that is preparing the bid. The bid location is set automatically based off of the job's bidding location. However, this can be adjusted as needed per bid. Next, we have the bid date, which will be initialized with the current date. Next, we have our bid types. In this case, I'm going to select fixed bid. The bid types available can be set in the administrative defaults for bidding. Next, we'll select our currency for the bid. In this case, we're going to go with US dollars as that is my studio default, but you can set a per bid currency. Statuses of the bid include not submitted, submitted, awarded, and not awarded. In this case, we're going to start with not submitted as we work up the bid. Each bid can only have one submitted, awarded, or not awarded version. The award date will be automatically set when the status is changed to awarded. However, the date can be manually overridden. In addition, the PO field will become active when the status is set to awarded. To the right, we have our client contacts. The initial contacts are copied over from the contacts on the job overview. Additional contacts can be added by selecting from the list. The order of the contacts displayed here will be the order they are included on the bid PDF. To change the contact order, simply grab the contact and you can drag and drop it to a new location. If you have any additional contact information you wish to include, you can include that in the text field below. Lastly, on the details page, we do have the bid history. The bid history logs all actions performed on any version within the bid, including the initial creation of the bid, creating new versions, updates, as well as deletion of versions. The bid history is a read-only log for reference purposes only, but it can be helpful in determining who performed the latest action on a bid. Now, if we want to create more room to work with the bid details, or any of the components of our bid, we can click the up arrow on our bid components toolbar. This will expand our bid components to give us more screen real estate in the bottom. Additionally, we can click on our maximize button to take up the full screen width. Click the button again to return to the default size. Now let's move on to adding line items to our estimate. We click on the Estimate tab, and we're presented with a blank workspace. And to the right, we have our list of items, and these are all of our individual line items. And next to that, we have a tab with our templates. Now, templates are groups of line items that can be added to bids all at once. Let's start by adding an individual line item. We'll scroll down, and we'll choose our color producer, and we'll drag that line item over to our bid. Now on the bid, we can see that we've got our line item number, priority, category, item name, display name, quantity, units, third-party costs, include an overall markup or discount, hard cost, rate, markup, discount, adjuster rate, cost, total, profit, and margin for that line item. Within the grid, we can choose which columns to display. So if I'm not interested in seeing my item number or priority, or I want to hide my per line item profit and margin, I can go ahead and do so. As I mentioned before, templates are groups of line items that have been predetermined so you can add them all at once to a bid. In this case, I'm going to grab my VFX template and I'm going to add that to my bid estimate. You can see here it has added a number of items that I might be interested in working with on this bid. So for now, I can go ahead and hide my items panel by clicking on the arrow to the right. If I need to return to that, I can click on the arrow pointing to the left to bring my panel back out. But I'm going to go ahead and hide that for now. Now, working with our grid, we have all of our line items here, and there's a number of ways that we can actually work with this. First, let's start by entering in some values. I can click directly into a cell, and I can set a quantity value. I can adjust my hard cost, my rate, my markup, my discount, as well as my adjusted rate. Columns such as cost and total are derived values based on the adjusted rate and the quantity. You'll see clicking into them actually displays a dark border. Items that can be directly edited will have this light blue border around them. Now, in addition to editing my items individually, I can select multiple items at once to edit them as a group. In this case, I'm going to select all of my items by using the checkbox in the header bar. I'll add a quantity in here. I'll set that to 5, and you'll see all of my items will now be adjusted to use 5. The grid also allows us to group by any column header. For example, I can grab the category header, drag it up to the bar above that says drag a column header and drop it here to group by that column. And when I do that, I can see that my bid is now grouped by those categories. I can collapse any groups as needed, and I can select all of the items in a group at once by selecting the checkbox to the left of the group title. I'll adjust these up and go ahead and save that. Now I can add additional templates at any time. If I go back to my templates menu, and in this case, I want to add expenses. I'm going to add expenses, and I can scroll down to my expenses. And in this case, I'm going to add 1 unit of equipment rentals and 1 unit of meals. When I save this, you'll also notice that any item with a 0 quantity will be removed from the bid. I also like to note that all items that have a 0 quantity on the bid will have a dark background in the cell so you can quickly identify them. So again, saving the bid will remove those 0 items. And we can see here now we just have our equipment rental and our meals. Now, when we're working with bids, as I mentioned, the cost and total are derived values. The markup, discount, and adjuster rate are also derived, but they are directly editable. In this case, I'm going to go down to my finishing numbers. And here I have 2D animation at a rate of 2,000. Well, I want to go ahead and discount that value. I'm going to add a 10% discount. When I do that, it's going to calculate out my adjusted rate and update my total. You can see the updated fields is denoted by the blue tick on the top left corner. Similarly, if I want to add a markup value, I can add a markup value. It will calculate my adjuster rate and set the new total. And I can also modify my adjuster rate directly, typing in a value, and the estimate will calculate out the appropriate discount to be applied. Now, for all the items here with the blue tick in the top left corner, those are items that have been changed in the bid, but they have not been saved. At this point in time, I can either choose to save the bid by clicking on the save icon in the top right, or I can revert my changes. Reverting my changes will revert the bid to my last saved version. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. When those changes are saved, you'll see my blue ticks go away. Well, let's scroll up to our expenses. One item that I want to call out is we do have the ability to mark items as a third-party cost, as well as whether or not they are to be included in the overall markup or discount. So in this case, for my equipment rental, I am going to say this is a third-party cost. I did not have a default hard cost and rate, so in this case, I am going to go ahead and enter in my own hard cost and rate here. And we'll add a 10% markup to that value. We also do not want to include that in the overall discount. Same for meals. We'll go ahead and remove that from being included. We'll set a hard cost. We will set a rate, and we will also add a markup. And I'm going to save my bid. While working with line items within the estimate, we can use keyboard navigation to quickly move between cells. I can click into a cell, make any adjustments I need, and clicking the down arrow allows me to move down a cell. Clicking to the right allows me to move right a cell, similarly to the left. And so I can move quickly around my bid using my keyboard arrows. Pressing enter will allow me to go in and make modifications, and hitting enter will close the cell for editing. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. Now, as we've been adding quantity to our line items in our bid, we can see our total profit, cost, and margin being updated. Additionally, to the right, we see our target margin. Now here, the graph is showing that we are 29% over our target margin, which is a good thing. The target margin for our company is 35%. Our bid is currently sitting at 63%, which means we are 29% over. And you can see a tooltip that explains this by hovering over the percentage value. The bid margin of 63.89% is 29% above the target margin of 35%. Now, if we wish, we can go in and start adding additional discounts to this bid. Let's say we add an overall 10% discount. Now, when we do that, we can see our target margin came down. We'll really increase this to see that value change. So now we can see that even dropped even lower to 18% by applying a 25% discount. Now, working with the totals at the top, you can enter fixed percentage values for overall markup and discount, and the panel will display the dollar cost value as well as the adjusted grand total. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, as we get ready to send this out to our client, we can click on our comments. We can enter comments for the bid. We can enter a statement of work, assumptions, as well as terms and conditions. Now, our terms and conditions can actually be selected from a drop-down here in the terms panel. The default comments, statement of work, and assumptions are all copied over from the administrative settings. The full depth of the export settings will be covered in a separate video, but in this case, we can preview what our exported bid will currently look like by clicking on the Preview PDF button. Now, each of these components is individually selectable to be added to the bid, and there are numerous organizational and grouping options available to you when exporting. Now, when we submit this bid to the client, we're going to go back to our details and we're going to click Submitted. When we do this, we will see that we'll get an orange indicator on our bid version. This means that this version of the bid was submitted to the client, and we can see from our bid list that our bid includes a submitted version. Now, if you need to make some modifications to the bid, offer additional discounts, you can actually do this by creating an additional version of the bid, and we do this by clicking the plus button next to versions in the bid list. This creates a brand new version of our original bid, duplicating the original bid settings. Now I can go into my estimate. I can add additional discounts if I want. Maybe I want to discount this whole section by 5%. I'll go ahead and save that. But rather than going through and individually discounting every line item, maybe I just want to hit a target value. In this case, I'm at $153,000 and I want to lower my bid to $140,000. I can type in that value directly, and NIM will automatically calculate what my overall discount needs to be to hit that target number. From this point, I'm going to go ahead and save my bid, and now I can compare my current version to my previous bid version. So in this case, if I step back and select my previous version, I can see my previous margin of 52% with my total of $153,000, and clicking on my new version, I can see my total of $140,000 with 48%. Now, working with versions is great when you need to make adjustments to the rates and quantities or add some additional items to your bid. But if the fundamental structure of the bid or the items that you're bidding needs to change, you can create a copy of this bid. And we can do this by going up to the toolbar, and next to the save button, we have our copy bid button here. When I copy the bid, it is going to create a brand new bid starting with the previously selected version. So in this case, you can see that was my $140,000 bid. Maybe this bid includes a 30 lift. So we're going to go ahead and add that information to the details. And we can adjust our numbers independently as needed. In this case, you can see that we've increased our quantity and it has actually lowered our margin. And so now our margin is only coming in at 26%. That is because we are still working with a fixed value. So NIM increased the overall discount. By increasing the overall discount over 53%, our bid margin is now below our company target margin of 35%. This is also indicated by highlighting the target margin percentage. If we want to remove that fixed value, simply uncheck the box and we can reset our discount as needed. In the component toolbar, we can see we've got our home button here as well as our organize by menu. Now we can step in and click organize by. What this allows us to do is organize our bid by any column within the bid. In this case, I'm going to organize by category. This will show me a full list of categories within the bid with their count, cost, total, profit, and margin. Now we have options on how to look at different cross sections of our bid. In this case, we can take our category and I want to organize this by item name. Now I'm looking at my individual line items in their discrete cost, total, profit, and margin. In this case, I can see that my 2D animation has a 66% margin on it, whereas my assistants only have a 7% margin on them. This is great for breaking down your bid so that you can look at different ways to potentially apply discounts when needed. Now, in addition to the current columns we've been looking at, we have another organizational unit called the bid section. Now, all bids start with a default section, and any line item added to the bid initially will go into that default section. In here, we see our section with our cost, total, profit, and margin. In this case, we're actually seeing our total cost, profit, and margin prior to the overall discount being applied. I can step into that section and I can rename this. Maybe this is all of my pre-production work. I can add a description and I can add a note. Additionally, I can add an image by dragging and dropping it over the drop zone here. Now, as I work within my section, I can work with all of my individual line items the same way I would at the top level. I could drag additional items in, I could drag templates in, but I can also make additional sections. I can go to the ellipsis menu to the right and click New Section. In this case, it's going to automatically make a new section. I'll call this Shot 01, say this is my first shot, and I can drag it an icon. Now, in this case, I can also grab a template. I do have a template here for a CG shot with some line items. I'll go ahead and drop that in. I'm going to take off my grouping at this point, and I'll just add some values to that. Now, in this case, I have my pre-production section, and I also have my shot 1 section. Now, if I step back into my organizational menu and I click on section, that will bring me up to my top level. Now I can see my original pre-production section with all of my original items, as well as my new shot 1. Now, when we're working with sections, we may want to create a section sequence. I can go over to my ellipsis menu and click on new section sequence. In this case, since I already made shot 1, I'm going to make 2 through 4. I'm going to get it offset at 10. And I can also pre-assign a template or even multiple templates. In this case, I'll choose CG shot. I could also have an asset build included with each of these. In this case, I'll just include my CG shot. Now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now my additional sections have been created. I can step into that section. I can add my images, and I can quickly also just jump between sections directly from the organizational menu. Now, just like before, I can select my items. I can make changes as needed. I can go through and adjust my individual quantities. I'm just going to group all of these and add them quickly. And now I can save this. And now if I jump back to sections again, I can see that I have totals for each of these with the individual margins for each section. Now you can see here, I actually named my other sections differently, and I want to go ahead and modify this one to conform. So I could either step directly into the section and type in here, but I also have the option of going into the ellipsis menu here. This allows me to either copy a section, edit a section, set it as the default section, or delete a section. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and edit my section, and I will just adjust that number to conform to the rest of my sections. Copying a section will copy all of the section information as well as any line items within the section. Similarly, deleting a section will delete all of the line items within that section. Now, as I mentioned before, you always start with a default section, and that default section is denoted by this blue tick here at the top left. You can change the default section from the menu as well. To set a default section, go ahead and choose Set as Default Section on the item desired, and I can have that adjusted. The reason why you may need to change the default section is that there always needs to be one section on a bid, and you cannot delete the default section. Also remember that any line items that are added to the bid at the top level while not in a section will be added to the default section. As we're looking at our organizational menu, we can step into a section, and we can see here that we do have an additional organize by level within the section. From here, I could do the same thing that I did at the top level where I select a category, and I can even select an item to step into. So now I'm only looking at my VFX items within shot one. Or I can step into finishing and look at all of my items that are just within the finishing section here. I could step back to see my list of categories by clicking up here on the higher level. I could step back into my section, step into my section level, or go all the way back to my root. And now again, at the root, I can see all of my line items across the entire bid. I'm going to show my section column here so I can see my section names, and I can group them so that I'm seeing across all of my sections simultaneously at the top level while still grouped by my sections. The default order of sections is ordered alphabetically. However, you can modify this as needed. You can change this using the drag handle. So I can grab this section, I can move it around. Let's say I want my pre-production here at the bottom. I can bring that down to the bottom. In my export settings, I do have the option to use the ordering that is within the estimate, or I can modify that directly on the export to use an independent order. Now, even though I reordered these manually, I still can go into a column header and I can sort these alphabetically again if I want, ascending or descending. Clicking off the column ordering will revert back to the manual order that I set. Now that we have our sections created, I'm going to jump back up to the top level where we can see everything all together. Now I'm going to go into my columns menu and I'm going to show my profit and margin. And in this case, I can see all of my different margins here. And let's say I want to find all of my line items that have a lower than a 30% margin. I can go into the column menu, go down to filtering and choose is less than, I'm going to put in 30. Now, I can quickly find all of my line items that have less than a 30% margin and adjust them as needed. You can do this for any of the columns within the estimate. To remove the filter, simply go back to the filter menu and hit clear. Now, as we've been making our changes, we can submit this one to the client and we go ahead and click submitted. Now, again, you'll see I have this version submitted and we still have our original version submitted. Maybe this one gets awarded. I can go ahead and click awarded. You'll see that the current date will be applied and we can add in a PO number and I'll hit save. By clicking save, you'll see that this version was awarded as indicated in green and also the bid itself will be indicated. I can also go back to my original version and maybe version 2 is also awarded. So I can go ahead and click awarded. I can click save. And now you can see while I can only have one awarded version within a bid, I can have multiple awarded bids within a job. Similarly, if we go over to this bid, I can go ahead and click on not awarded, and that one will get marked as gray as not being awarded by the client. And that is a brief overview of bidding in NIM. We appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, please reach out to support at nim-labs.com. Thank you.